morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today, Thursday, February 16th. My name is Anshee Lee, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Security Title Guaranty Corporation of Baltimore. I will be the moderator for this presentation. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. Attendees are in listen-only mode, but feel free to ask any questions and comment through the questions and chat sections of your control panel, respectively. We will take some time to address questions at the end. A reminder for those who are seeking continuing education credit in eligible states. You must keep your focus on the webinar as well as participate in the polls throughout this presentation. On behalf of everyone at Security Title, thank you for carving out time in your busy schedules for this important topic. Without further ado, I will hand off the microphone to our Alabama State Manager, Sean Culhane.
Thank you, Anshee. Good morning, everyone. We really appreciate you being here. I know your time is valuable. First, I want to start by thanking Marcus and Pat for being here. You will get your money's worth today. I promise. It's going to be a phenomenal hour. Like I said, my name is Sean Culhane. I'm the Alabama and Tennessee State Manager for Security Title. So today I have the pleasure of introducing two of the preeminent attorneys in the title industry, Pat Smith, founder and CEO, and Marcus Hunt, co-founder and Chief Strategy Officer of Title Success Solutions. Both Marcus and Pat have decades of experience in the title industry, and over their careers, they have owned, run, bought, sold, merged, and founded title companies. One thing that all their experience has taught them, that there was a dearth of talent that could advise companies and individuals on the sale, valuation, or purchase of a title agency. Since the founding in 2019 of Title Success Solutions, both Pat and Marcus have advised countless individuals and companies nationwide on these types of needs. So I would like to introduce my friends, Pat Smith and Marcus Hunt. Gentlemen.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you having us. We're super excited, and that was quite the intro, and we appreciate it. And honestly, Pat and I love doing this, and we've been in the industry for a while. We've worked with numerous title companies. We've owned and grown our own title companies and operations. And so this is really kind of one of our passions, and that's just helping people that own title companies either grow and expand, or those owners that are looking to transition out of the business because they've had a successful career and are looking to move on. And we love working with those owners just to help in that transition period. So today we're excited to share with you about just what mergers and acquisitions look like in the title industry, and kind of in our new frontier of our industry right now. We've seen some changes and slow down a little bit, but I think the M&A kind of piece of what we're doing, Pat, is kind of going to be continuing kind of over the next 5 or 10 years pretty heavily. And so today we're going to talk about really more from a higher level. Some of those topics as they kind of pertain to the M&A world in the title space. And so we'll talk about the current market today. We'll also, for those looking to buy or expand, we'll talk about what it looks like being a buyer in today's market. And then we'll kind of dive a little deeper into what it looks like as a seller, and then creating an exit strategy and succession plan. And so kind of how those things play out. And so with that, Pat, we'll jump in.
All right.
Let's kind of talk about the current state of mergers and acquisitions.
Okay.
We've seen, I think, a really heightened amount of acquisitions before we kind of hit the rate changes, and everybody knows kind of a little bit of a slowdown. I feel like just trying to get into the new normal in the title industry, which is not a bad place. We were all running crazy for a while. But leading up to that, we saw a lot of acquisitions too, because it was flowing. There was a lot of players, whether it was underwriters, whether it was large title companies looking to expand their footprint. What are some of the things that you've seen as far as the market goes, Pat?
Okay. Well, I think that the market for mergers and acquisitions in the title insurance industry was mirroring over the past few years pretty much what we were seeing in the real estate market.
Right.
We were seeing a M&A market that was heating up. We were seeing a lot of activity in the M&A market, driven primarily by institutional investors and even private equity firms who are seeking to move into the title insurance industry. This is a good thing for the traditional family-owned, closely held mom and pop title agency, because it provides liquidity for those owners as they get into an aging demographic type of situation. I think that one of the things that motivated Marcus and me to get into this space is our personal experience, our personal friendships with title agency owners in the Southeast that we know through Southeast Land Title Association, Stewart and other underwriter groups that we attend, is that a lot of the agency owners that we know are in their late 60s, they're in their 70s. They don't really have family members that are looking to move into the title insurance industry. We're not seeing colleges and universities produce title insurance specialist business degrees, so there's a very tight labor pool. And what we've seen is just a very favorable market because of the money moving into the title insurance industry, timed with the number of people who are considering that maybe it's time for them to move on to a new chapter. We saw a lot of activity. Now, as we started to see a little bit of an uptick in interest rates, a little bit of a slowdown in the housing market, we've seen a little bit of a pullback in the M&A market. Right. But just as there's going to continue to be a strong need for housing, there's still going to be, and we're continuing to see it through the phone calls and the inquiries that we get, there's still going to continue to be movement of capital into the title insurance industry space, and those owners are not getting younger, right? And their children still don't want to come into the business, and there's still a shortage of employees. So the basic dynamic that led to this movement in the title insurance agency marketplace is going to continue to be there as our older owners tend to move on into their next chapter. And then what we'll start to see are the private equity groups and the other investors, the large title agencies that have been our acquiring entities in this space, are going to start to get into a consolidation mode. And we're going to continue to see mergers and acquisition activity on even a little bit of a larger level. So this is a situation, this is an opportunity that has grown over the past 4 or 5 years as the market has picked up, and is going to continue, in our opinion, to be very steady over the foreseeable future, at least until we complete this transition in the agency ownership space.
Well, and I think that even leads into just kind of one of our other kind of bullet points here. You know, we've even seen, you know, real estate companies, brokerages,
I didn't even get into
that are, you know, looking to get into the title space. And I've even seen even more so with a little bit of the downturn, a little slowing down. You know, real estate companies are looking to add other streams of revenue to kind of make up. And so we've got, you know, these brokerages that are, whether looking for joint ventures or looking at an acquisition, both kind of serve the same purpose. They're looking for that additional stream of income.
Yeah, if you look at the industry dynamics in the real estate market, and I spent 15 years as corporate counsel for a large real estate brokerage firm in Alabama, is the mainstream real estate brokerages have had to transfer more and more of the commission dollar to the agents in order to attract and retain top quality sales staff. That's put more pressure on the ownership group to find other ways to grow their income base. So, you know, there was a rash of affiliated business arrangements maybe 10, 15 years ago. That kind of died down, kind of settled out. You only saw the bigger players getting into that space. And now, just like you said, we're starting to see individual brokerages saying, hey, we need to improve our income stream. Let's look around. Mortgages are great, make a lot of money per transaction off mortgages. Settlement, title are great. We make more money perhaps per transaction on that than we do on the brokerage side.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can create this horizontal integration here,
Yeah.
we can drive more money into the ownership group of the title
Right.
company. Same thing with joint ventures. If we can offer a top real estate team or a top real estate agent a piece of a joint venture to come with our brokerage
Mhm.
company, now we've increased our revenue by bringing that team in, as well as increasing the revenue on our joint venture side. So there's a lot of factors, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
A lot of people are looking at title insurance agencies as an opportunity for acquisition.
Right. And then kind of the last item in the trends that we've got listed out here is just limited or skilled workers. That's not quite as big of a deal as we had when we were in the middle of kind of all the craziness in the title space, when we were, our staffs were overworked and, just piling up the hours, and we needed, just more live bodies, and especially those that were skilled in title. So, we were seeing at one point where even just acquisitions were just to get talent, just a play for acquiring more talent.
And I'm working on a acquisition or potential acquisition right now. That's the driving force behind the play. That the target group has some tremendous talent.
Right.
They're in a position where they would like to grow. They need capital to grow, and I've got a buyer who sees that as an opportunity to bolster their marketing capabilities as well as their operational capabilities, and that staffing is a major factor behind the acquisition effort.
All right. Well, Pat, let's move into, we're going to jump forward to growing your agency through acquisitions. And so let's talk about like buyers. And we got to, so we're going to kind of lead into our kind of discussion about those buyers with a poll question. So this is our first poll question of the day. And this is just talking about if you're looking to grow your company, kind of where are you looking? Are you looking locally? Are you looking within your state, your region? Or if you're just not looking right now to grow, you may be someone on the line and a part of this webinar that's just not really got a growth mindset at this stage. So we'll lead into that poll question.
Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll question for the audience here. And we'll give the folks at home a couple of moments to respond.
And I guess there should be one more. There's all of the above, but or all of the above growth opportunities. We've been working with agencies who are expanding within a very small geographic area, like same town.
Yep.
They just want to grow their market share there. We're people that are wanting to grow a network throughout a particular geographic region. And I've got at least one buyer now who says, I want to take over the country.
Yeah.
I want to have the largest title agency in the United States. So
from onesie and twosies to people that are looking to grow, large footprints. And, we talk about it, Pat, even if you're not looking to grow or don't think you're kind of in a growth mode, you and I talk about like, if you're not growing, you're going backwards.
I mean, if my agency grossed $2 million last year in net premium revenue, I'm not looking to go to $1.5 million of net premium revenue this year, right?
Right.
So even if, in my experience as an operator, title agency operators, that we were always looking to grow. It's just a matter of, were we looking to do it in a limited fashion organically through increasing capture rate,
right?
Or are we looking to move into open a new office in another part of the metropolitan area where we work? In my professional opinion, both as an old CPA and as a title operator, you've got to be looking to grow one way or another.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll. I did set this up as a multiple response just to gauge, as you had mentioned. And it looks like it's a whole bunch of kind of 38. We're looking local and state, so a little bit on the smaller side, but also within the region. And, there's a decent amount also not looking to grow right now. So it may not mean that they're not looking within their local or state region, but also just maybe not right now is the top priority. But good feedback all around.
Yeah, a couple of things there. Let's talk first, Marcus, about those 31% of the poll respondents that said that we're not looking to grow right now. I can see multiple reasons for that. We're in a marketplace where maybe we're a little bit, we're a little bit reluctant to invest a lot of capital.
Right.
Maybe we're not sure where the capital is, whatever. I mean, if somebody came to you and we were talking about succession plans and whatever, what, and they said, well, I'm not looking to grow right now. What would you say to them about the thought process? Where should they be thinking there?
Well, and again, I think you've got, even if you're not looking to grow, there's some things you should be doing, unless, I mean, there are those, and we'll definitely dive into a large portion we're going to talk about today are those that are looking to exit. And so if you're within a short exit window, your focus is probably on the exit strategies instead of growth strategies. But if you're kind of just in a window of like, I'm sitting back, don't really have a growth plan or strategy, and it's whether it's because of I don't want to outlay the capital to go make an acquisition or just, there's different ways we've talked about it. We'll kind of lead into those. There's different ways we've worked with clients, whether it's finding funding or working with a seller for owner financing. There's different ways from a capital standpoint, but other things I think just in general, as we talk about the large group, I mean, so we also had, I love that we had a great mix of people looking to grow more locally and then regionally, and then those that are just I'm not in a place of growth. So really, I love that we've got kind of diversity in the group today.
So we're going to talk to all of you about something that can be helpful.
Right. And so, reasons for growth, and that's kind of on your slide here. Obviously, more market share. I think this is a great time for those, even with the market slowing. I think it's a great time to grow, to grab market share. And so whenever our market, the industry and the real estate, industry kind of turns, you're kind of well positioned. Now's the time, I feel like, for our owners that are looking to grow, to get better, to create maybe a better footprint. And so whenever, things turn around and we get back up to a little more faster pace and are doing more, you've kind of got all your pieces in place in other markets that you wanted to be.
So would you agree with me, Marcus, that increased market share would typically translate into increased value?
Oh, 100%. And that's some of the things, even if you're looking maybe to transition out of your business in 5 or 10 years, maybe having that another office or location in a certain part of town that may be growing or that you're kind of don't have a real presence in, definitely would create some value down the road when it comes to maybe looking to sell. And maybe right now you're able to acquire an office at maybe a lower price, and then once things turn, you may be able to really kind of reap the benefits of riding it back up and improving that and growing that new location.
So it's kind of a little bit of one of the Warren Buffett strategies is when the market pulls back, it creates opportunity.
Right.
Well, let me ask that leads to another question. We know of companies that for a long time, particularly in the past several years, when interest rates were perhaps artificially low, they were riding the refinance wave.
Right.
Now they may not have a lot of business.
Right.
So would you agree with me also that having a diverse and balanced customer base is a healthy indication of a healthy agency and also helps create and build value?
Yeah, I think I'm creating that diversity amongst kind of your offices and making sure if the market turns one way or another, you're still in a balanced position. And so I think, a lot of our clients that we've worked with have whether they've acquired another office that's, based on maybe it does more builder work because they didn't have any builder business, or so I think diversifying kind of your portfolio of offices and the type of business that you have. And then finally, kind of in that section, just growing your footprint. I mean, there's a lot of value in being more of having a wider presence in the market, and whether that's in your state or whether that's in a region, being able to grow that footprint.
I'll give a couple examples there that I think are healthy. And those of you who are not geographically familiar with the Alabama area, we've got Alabama's basically 3 or 4 different economic geographic reasons. One's the Tennessee River Valley along North Alabama, where you have Florence, Athens, Decatur, Madison, and Huntsville. Those used to be more distinct geographic metropolitan areas, and now they're kind of growing together. One growth strategy that we've seen, that we've discussed with some clients, is to have that Northeast Alabama, Scottsboro, Huntsville, Madison, Athens, Decatur, Florence, to try to build across that whole valley to take advantage of some economic development that's happening there. Another would be, an example would be to the Alabama, Florida Gulf Coast. Mobile, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Perdido Key, Pensacola, Panama City, Florida, where you're, again, a lot of growth in that area. You're trying to build a footprint that takes advantage of that particular, the unique economic characteristics of that area. So lots of reasons and opportunities there to.
And a lot of our clients that have come to us, I mean, that's been one of their biggest pieces is trying to grow that footprint. Pat, let's talk about finding opportunities. This is kind of one of the things that I think we're able to help from a title success piece. But the other thing is we rely on a lot of people with, kind of boots on the ground in the fields, and we'll kind of start with our underwriters are really kind of one of our best places to kind of go find opportunities. Our underwriters know kind of what's going on from a state level, from a local level. So
I'll give an example. My wife owns an agency, and we have 3 underwriters, and those state representatives stop by and see us on a pretty regular basis, as do some other state reps who we know that we don't write for. But those state reps, those agency relationship managers, they're in your office as much as anybody. They tend to know what's going on, not just in your office, but in other agencies. So if I'm looking to grow by acquiring an agency in another agency in Baldwin County, Alabama, I'm going to ask Sean, I'm going to ask my underwriter reps, hey, I'd like to maybe expand my footprint a little bit. Do you have any idea here who I might call? They have an idea who you might call.
So I think our underwriters are a great place to start as far as if you're looking to grow and finding opportunities. Business brokers, it's kind of what we do at Title Success, along with the consulting piece that we bring to the table. We also, again, help broker deals and create kind of a database of sellers that we know that are selling, and try to be matchmakers for those that are helping match, buyers and sellers. And there's other business brokers kind of throughout the country. And so that's a great resource. And then finally, Pat, we talk about our associations, whether it's ALTA or our regional or state associations, are great places to connect.
Client I'm working with now, very good client, came up to us after our presentation at the ALTA One conference in San Diego last year, and introduced himself, said, I need to hire you guys. And, he's looking to grow, and he's looking for us to help him find opportunities. We've also had people come to us and said, hey, man, you guys talk about that succession plan, and that hit home, because my dad, he's just kind of gone home and left us with the agency, and we're not real sure what's going to happen. So if you're in either one of those positions, going to your regional, your Southeast Land Title, your Florida Land Title, Texas Land Title meetings, and networking and socializing and finding out what's happening and who is in that space will provide opportunities both for buyers and sellers to match with people who have similar interests.
Well, and I've in the past, even, whether it's sitting around cocktails and, after an event, you kind of maybe you build a relationship with someone that maybe down the road is looking to exit, and you kind of start building that network of connections and relationships of other title company owners that you may, really have a great connection with, and you want to, merge kind of your operations. And so that's a great place to be. As we kind of move forward in just kind of ways growing your agency, I think one of the biggest, we talked about a few of the key people when we're talking about finding opportunities, but when we start looking to actually put a deal together, really start putting the pieces in place, I think one of the biggest places that we've got to focus and that you've got to make sure you've got kind of locked down are the your team. We talk
Nope.
about creating a great team.
Let me tell you about this. This is one of those things that regardless of how you voted on the poll, that you're looking to grow locally, state, regional, or you're just not looking to grow right now. This next little conversation that we're going to have is one of the most important takeaways that I think that you can have from what we're trying to get across today. You need to have a team of trusted advisors, go-to ride or die people that are part of your organization. If you're looking to buy, or if you're looking to sell, even if you're looking just to build a better business organization,
Yeah.
you need a trusted team, and that needs to include a business attorney. And this is not necessarily an attorney you play golf with or tennis with every weekend. This is a business attorney who understands corporate formalities, corporate requirements. They understand business. They've been involved in the M&A space with companies of the size and that you are.
Yeah.
That is going to become a speed dial number for you
Right.
through this process. Secondly, an accountant, a CPA who has been in your books, who knows what they look like, who has put those accounts and numbers in a consistent format, who have cleaned up weird entries like, I don't know, or, ask the accountant, that so that when you or anybody else looks at those financial statements, it's coherent, it tells a story, it projects the message of your company. Another that's not on here is an insurance broker,
Right.
both for your business insurance, for key man insurance. And then once you get to the point of saying, okay, I'm ready to make a move, I'm ready to go out into the marketplace to try to find an acquisition or a merger, or I'm ready to put myself out there as a target for a merger acquisition. This is where you need an investment banker or business broker to help make those introductions, to help guide you through the process, to make sure that the process flows in the correct pace and in the correct manner. And I'm going to go one step further here. Marcus, you mentioned that there are business brokers companies around the country. Find a business broker or an investment banker who is familiar with your industry. The title insurance industry is unique. It
Right.
shares some common elements with the insurance industry writ large. It shares some elements with the legal services industry, and then it has a lot of unique characteristics that are singular to the
Right.
title insurance company. So there's some companies out there that are in that space. Some tend to work more with larger agency acquisitions. Some tend to work more with mid-market, smaller. But wherever you are, find somebody that speaks your language in your space.
Right. And that we just can't emphasize that enough. And we're a resource if you need to contact in any of those spaces. We are always glad to help. Pat, let's kind of transition. We're still in I'm a buyer, talking about the buyer mode, and we've gotten through the process. And again, this is kind of a pretty broad overview of M&A. So as we wrap up kind of the buyer piece, we're going to talk about preparing for day one. And I always say, the easy part is getting the deal done and getting the paper signed and getting to the closing table. Although a lot of people think that's a tricky piece. I think the real work starts on day one of owning a new company. And so being prepared for that, kind of creating a transition team, we'll talk through that. But one of the things I want to lead in with is just the merging of company culture. It's such an important piece that sometimes doesn't hit the bottom line or doesn't hit the financial books, but company,
it will.
Yeah,
It will.
it eventually.
It's just hard to
But when you're
quantify.
doing your due diligence, it is a hard piece to quantify. And so having a plan for merging company cultures and merging teams together, those things need to be kind of really thought out, really planned out whenever you're bringing two companies together. I've acquired numerous title companies, and every single one of them are different when it comes to merging the cultures and merging the two companies. Some can be an overnight merge, I feel like, and then others may take several months to make the transition because you've just got to massage a little bit more and you've got to make sure all the right people and the things connect a little bit better. And so this is not one of those one size fits all kind of pieces of what we're doing when we make an acquisition. I think it's one of those you've got to really dive in. You've got to know and learn about the people in the new company and how they merge with what you're already doing.
And other thing to think about there, and I think that becomes more pronounced if you're expanding your company outside of the geographic area where you are. So, Marcus, you and I are familiar with an agency in another part of our state that I call it very buttoned up. And people wear suits and ties, and they come to work and they're very formal. And then we have agencies on the Gulf Coast that office attire is, anything beyond shorts and flip-flops, right? It's just a very different dynamic where you are, and to try to merge those cultures together is going to take some planning and some work and some understanding. Here's the other thing that I lead with is that if you are an acquiring company, and there are going to be a lot of acquiring companies. If you're an acquiring company and it's day one of we've signed the paperwork, we've getting ready to do the press release, and we bring everybody in and we're starting to tell everybody what just happened if they don't know already. At that point, everybody in that room is going to have their hearts in their throat. They're going to be scared to death that I'm going to lose my job, because that's what happens, right? So I think that one of the things to prepare for as part of that merging the cultures is to being able to provide reassurance, to be able to suggest that, changes will be thoughtful, that everyone will be involved in how we do things. It's just letting somebody take a deep breath.
That's right.
The other thing to remember is that good people are bait, right? I mean, good people in your organization, once it's announced, hey, there's
sharks in the water.
The sharks start circling. So we have to go to those people and assure them that, hey, you're part of the reason that we wanted to make this deal.
And I think that's important. We talked about is, kind of one of our key points here, retaining key employees and having a plan for those key employees, but really before day one of them.
That's something we like to do during the period between the signing of the purchase agreement and the closing, is to identify those key employees, to find out what their comp plan is. Are they happy? What's their personal situation? Do we need to work to have some sort of additional incentive plan in place, something to make sure that they know they have skin in the game and they want to stay.
And so I think that's a really important piece, because you've got 2 or 3 key employees that walk out the door because they were unsure or didn't feel like they were being heard, or there wasn't a plan for them. That's detrimental to kind of the success of this acquisition. And so I think you got to think about that. And all those are pieces, Pat, that really are part of your just creating this transition plan. And you may have a small office that's looking to acquire another small office just, across town. There's still a transition plan for that. What does that look like? What does that look like from a technology standpoint, from a back office, from a people standpoint? What does that look like? To a
technology platform.
Right. To if you're a regional, title company looking to add a large office, there's a need for a transition plan and a strategy, regardless of the size of the acquisition or the size of your company. And so I always tell people, again, it's really when the work begins, and your true success and how you measure it is based on how that transition happens.
And don't be afraid. If you're buying a company, you're buying an agency, you're spending money. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish.
Right.
Be willing to make investments in people, in technology. Be willing to make investments in human resource management. Be willing to make investments in consultants to help manage that process. Again, there are consulting companies that can ease this process. We involve ourselves in that quite frequently, but you're spending a lot of money. It's an investment. go the extra mile, make the additional investment to make sure that this blending of technology, people, locations, and cultures is done intentionally, thoughtfully, and with a purpose.
Yeah. And so that leads us into, Pat, we've kind of hit at least a halfway point and really diving into the bigger kind of piece of material that we've got today. And that's really talking about succession planning and why it's so important. And we'll we've got another poll question for you, poll question number 2. And this is a real simple one, so this won't take us long. Do you have a succession plan in place? So I'll let you kind of run with that one.
And before you vote on this, if you venture yes, I'm going to ask you, is that in writing, or is that something you can hand to somebody and look at, or is it something that's roaming around in your head? So yes is if you have a succession plan in writing and somebody knows what it is.
Yeah.
We've got a bunch of folks already answering, so that's great. We'll give them a few more moments just to get their responses in.
And then we're gonna talk about why this is Marcus, the Chief Strategy Officer. He absolutely loves talking about M&A, and it is exciting and it is fun and it's the sexy part of what we do. Right. This next part is my passion, because I have seen what has happened to people that I know, right, people who I consider to be my friends, because they didn't invest the time in putting a plan in place, or even thinking about it.
Right.
So this is pretty much what I expected to see. We've got 14% of our respondents who have a succession plan in place, 86% who say they do not. That's pretty consistent with what we've seen.
Yeah.
But now we're talking to all of you. Those who have a succession plan in place, congratulations, and thank you so much for investing that time. I would say to you that a succession plan is something like a will. It's like your power of attorney. It's like your life insurance plan. It's something that's not static. It's something that needs to be reviewed and revisited with your team of trusted advisors on a regular basis. So if you've got a succession plan, congratulations and thank you, but don't take a minute and go get something to drink right now, because we're talking to you as well.
Right. And this really does, thinking about the plan, and then we're going to have another poll question after this. But Pat, let's just dive in real quick, just kind of an overview of why it's important again. We know we've got key employees and the transitioning of an owner out of a company. And,
right.
And so what does that really, what does that look like for an owner? I mean, do you have someone that you put in place that's either a manager that can step in so there's not a void? Because I know as an acquiring company, if there's going to be a leadership void day one whenever I take over, that's a big red flag. And so you need to have a plan in place that when you're talking about the leadership, that doesn't miss a beat.
I ran a large agency that was owned by a national company. So succession of the ownership of the company was not necessarily an issue. That was never going to be a problem. The more typical situation is you've got closely held companies, closely held agencies, mm-hmm. one or two people, mom and pop, that if the identity, the ownership succession is one thing, but just as you said, I wanted to make sure when I ran my company, the company I ran, that everybody knew that if I got run over by a log truck on the way to the office that morning, who was going to sit in that chair starting right. that day, and make sure that the transition into permanent management was smooth, that my clients and customers didn't suffer, that everybody knew who to look to for leadership and guidance. And I think that is the first thing for any owner or manager to think about, is if there is an unexpected tragedy, if something unfortunate happens,
right?
How does this agency continue to run today, tomorrow, and to the point to where we find we put our succession plan in place, there's always going to be a succession in that case.
Right.
It's just a matter of whether it's planned,
Right.
organized, effective, and it sustains the value of the company that you've built, or whether once that happens, the value is diminished and the resulting owners, the family is somehow damaged by that. So
Right.
it affects everybody in the company.
Yeah.
Everybody is affected by whether or not you have a succession plan in place and everybody knows what it is.
All right, so let's get to poll question number 3. And so this kind of just broadly, like if you're kind of in the, I think I might be looking to exit or sell at some point. Here's the poll question, like what is that timeline for you? Is it within the next 2 years, a 2 to 5 window, 5 to 10, or 10 plus? And so we just kind of wanted to get a take on maybe who is in the audience and kind of either the urgency to have a plan in place. But Pat, you and I always even talk about, like, even if it's 10 plus years, you should have a plan.
Well, because even though you may not be planning on selling your company right now, and maybe you're 40 years old and I'm stuck in this chair and I can't get out. If you're 40 years old and you have no interest in making a move to retirement until your mid 50s, there still could be events that transpire that are going to result in a transition of ownership of that company, whether it's a tragedy, it's a change in circumstances, you hit the Powerball and you want to say to heck with it. You have some sort of metamorphosis or epiphany that you want to go do something else. Those plans can change.
Right.
And because that timing of your transition is maybe intended but uncertain,
Right.
the wise thing to do is to go ahead and start planning for that transition today by having a succession plan in place, by knowing what you want to happen whenever that time comes.
Yeah.
And I can't stress enough how important that is. We should have had a poll question that went along with the succession plan for your company. Well, how many of you have a will? Right? Because the succession plan for your company to your company is the same thing as having a will for your own purposes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm 61 years old. I don't plan on going anywhere for the next 30 years, maybe, but that doesn't mean I don't have a will that tells what happens if I don't make it that long.
Right. Yeah. So we got our poll results back. And so looks like we've got kind of an audience that is actually looking to hold for a little bit longer, which is awesome. And maybe kind of be more in the growth minded group.
Exactly. Yeah.
But again, as we said, there are a lot of things that we need to be doing as even a company that's growing. The things that we look at in building a succession plan are things that just make our company more valuable anyway. And so
you can go ahead to the next slide. I think we covered that one.
We're going to jump ahead to assessing our company. And so whether you're looking to sell, Pat, or just be a better company, we're going to kind of cruise through some of these kind of from a high level, but the ways to maximize values in our company. We talk about operations, we'll talk about the people, and then we'll kind of talk about the financial piece. And so, Pat, let's talk about just generally like operations, how we can maximize value.
So Marcus, you've been an owner operator for many years now, and you've had offices that have excelled, offices you've had to coach, operations that have great management in place, and then you have management you've had to train. You agree with me that a well-managed office, a well-managed company has a higher value than one that is struggling?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, and again, it's probably one of the top items that I'm looking at when I'm, looking at an acquisition is how does the management team, the leadership, you and I talk about, and we'll get into, putting a value on a company in multiples. I think one of the things that tick up the multiple is a strong management leadership that's going to be there whenever the owner moves on.
And we've seen that in the clients that we've worked with, where the buyer has identified a strong on-site management team that's going to continue to be involved. And those acquisitions always brought a higher multiple than the ones where we kind of said, okay, we see opportunity here, but we also see challenges. So the first thing to look at in assessing your company is take a real hard, honest look. And if you don't want to just bare your soul to yourself, bring somebody in and say, do a 360 review of this company. Tell me where our strengths and our
Right.
weaknesses
Yeah.
are, even if I'm the weakness. We did this several years ago at the company that I manage, and they came back and they said, okay, here's your strengths, here's your weaknesses, and oh, by the way, here's some things you could do to improve,
Right.
right? But be willing to hear that. If you need, as an owner manager, to up your game, don't be afraid to hear that. Be excited to hear that, because that gives you an opportunity to maximize
Right.
the value of your company. Second thing, beyond leadership, I think that in our industry, we tend to develop processes and workflows on a happenstance
Right.
basis.
We're very reactionary.
We're very reactionary. Things just kind of tend to come together in some sort of method and way to get a product out the door. Another thing we did was we had consultants come in and look at our workflow,
Right.
from order entry to policy production,
Right.
and everything in between. And they came back and they said, here's your current workflow, and it's got a list of stuff like this. We said, oh, great.
Right.
They said, no, here's what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And the workflow that they proposed, because they were good at operations, cut down on the number of steps, it cut down on the number of keystrokes, it cut down on the number of opportunities to make mistakes and errors. It sped up the policy production process. It sped up the remittance process. It improved our operations in every way. Now, we didn't use that as a way to eliminate people.
Mm-hmm.
We use that as a way to increase capacity, so we could provide better service and faster service to the people that were coming to us. That's your opportunity. That's something that you want to consider doing, whether you're looking to sell tomorrow, you're looking to sell 10 years down the road, or you have no intention of selling ever.
Right.
But it's something that we don't do as operators. We don't stop and take that hard, critical look at how well we're doing what we do.
Yeah. And from as just a title company owner, I think right now is such a great time. We've gone through, again, a little bit of a market slowdown, especially coming out of December and January. It's a great time to take that step back and evaluate our company, because, if your workflow process includes a pile of boxes in the corner with files in it, then you're talking about your multiple heading downward.
Yep.
It's things like that affect, again, the value of your company. You may not realize it when you're just in the middle of it, but things like that affect the value. And so
I'll go you one more. We know people who are running their company off of software that came in on CDs, that was loaded onto a server that's sitting in a closet,
Yeah.
that's probably not adequately ventilated, may not have sufficient power supply, certainly doesn't have sufficient offsite backup
security and stuff.
and security.
Yeah.
But that's the way that agency runs every day.
Mhm.
And they get product out the door, and everything's wonderful until it's not.
Right. That's a scary place to be.
Staying current technologically
Yeah.
is going to be one of the key factors in operational success and growth as we move into this new era. It's also one reason that some title agency owners are saying, you know what, I don't want to make that investment. I don't want to go down that road. I think it's time I moved on to another
Mhm.
chapter.
I'm going to talk just real quickly about kind of the other area, maximizing your value. Talking about people. We've kind of hit on people kind of throughout this whole kind of discussion, because let's be honest, people is kind of at the core of everything we do, whether it's our people, whether it's, we talk about leadership, key employees, even the people when we talk about our clients, whether it's a mix of our business, we talk about, kind of see the bullet point here. So the value and taking a look at the people that we have, tied to our offices is extremely important. Again, who's going to take over? Who's going to be the leadership if you step away? We just briefly talk about, working on your business, not in your business. We referenced the E-Myth book here. It's just, how are you creating and making your business better? And as the owner, you should be looking at it that way and not so entrenched that you can't really see kind of all the moving parts in the pieces. We talk about mentoring key personnel. One of the best acquisitions that I made was the owner realized about 5 years out that they needed to replace themselves, and so 5 years out from their exit, they put a manager in place, started handing off all the key pieces of the day-to-day management. And by the time she exited, she had a very competent, very well-trained manager leader in their office.
And everybody knew what was happening, and there was no pushback.
Yeah,
right?
There didn't miss a beat. And so I think that's very important. And again, talking about key team members, just retaining those in the middle of a transition, and especially those key employees that have business tied to them. And so creating, whether it's some kind of incentive for them to stay and locking them down, those are important parts when we talk about maximizing value as it pertains to people. The next kind of piece, Pat, just talking about the number one question we get out of the gate is, what's my company worth?
Yep.
And so let's talk about real quick kind of the financial condition of companies and how to better that, and then what we look at from a valuation piece.
One of the things that we do quite a bit is people will come to us and say, I need you to help me value my company.
Yeah.
It may be because they're looking to sell.
Mhm.
It may be because somebody looking to buy a company, they want me to value that. It may be because they need to get key man insurance. It may be because the owner's going through a divorce. There are a lot of reasons why people come to us and say, can you do a valuation? And it's one of the things that we're glad to do. When I'm starting that process, there's some things that I need to know. I need accurate financial statements. Refer back to my comment about having a good CPA.
Right.
I need good, accurate financial statements that are in a format that is what I call clean. I mean, there's not a lot of variation from year to year in the account classifications and what have you. I'm going to want to go through those financial statements with you and talk to you about what expenses are showing up in the expense column that are, if you left the company, they would go with you.
Right.
Whether it's cell phones or auto leases or whatever. I'm not questioning what is being deducted. I don't care. The horse, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just want to know what they are so that I can take those into account when I'm doing valuations. I want to talk about your claims experience. I want to know if you're at that position where underwriters are starting to put claims back on you. So if we address that, I want to have a conversation with you about your market share. I want to know who your key competitors are. I'm going to look at the MLS for that geographic area over the past 3 years, and then I'm going to look at your growth. Are you outperforming or underperforming the MLS for your area? I'm going to talk to you about your management team. I'm going to talk to you about a succession strategy. And then I'm going to produce just a purely financial model that tells me, based upon common measurements of value in the title space, what a range of values are. And then from there, I'm going to refine that by looking at these subjective factors about quality of management, market share, customer mix, what have you. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you a value. That value is going to be stated usually in terms of multiples of earnings.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a result, that's not the calculation.
Right.
In other words, I don't just come to your earnings and say, oh, 3 to 5, maybe a 4. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, based upon your cash flow, your anticipated cash flow, based upon your anticipated increase in expenses, your anticipated growth, the growth in the marketplace, based upon how that impacts your cash flow, how that impacts your expenses, here is the value that I see, and then I can best express that to you in a statement of earnings multiples. But that's a process. It takes a little while. It's part science, it's part art, and it's part math.
Right. Yeah. And I think it is one of those things that we get asked all the time. It's kind of one of the leading questions. It's kind of one of the first things that we do for companies that come to us. They want to we're either putting a value on their company or helping them, do a valuation of an acquisition. Moving to the next kind of slide, we're going to just overview real quick, what does it look like for you as an owner? So I'm gonna throw some things out there for you to consider as an owner that's looking to transition. Do you want to stay in the business after you've sold the company? I mean, a lot of acquiring companies want to know that the owner is going to stick around at least for maybe a year and just help with the transition process. So that's a big piece. And I think as an owner, you've got to really think long and hard about what you're willing to do kind of post acquisition to stick around. Now we've got, owners that have said, I'm handing the keys and I'm riding off into the sunset.
Yep.
And that's just part of what, that's
And we
my
factor
goal.
that into the valuation,
right.
and that just becomes part of the, for the process.
And that even, I think, if that's the goal, you definitely got to have someone that's ready to step in.
Right.
You've already kind of created, so there's not a void in the office. Are there family members in the business that are, going to stick around and be a part of the office, and or do they want to, maybe potentially be an acquirer of the company? And then, we even talk about, other current employees. We've done some deals that have been more internal because someone that's been with the company for a while is kind of ready to step into that ownership role. And so we've worked with companies and done more of an internal transition. So all those are things to consider as an owner when you're looking at internally, basically what you want to do, plus if there's other, members of your team, whether it's family members or, office managers or leaders that may, maybe looking to acquire internally. Next, Pat, just kind of, you hit on, we talk about putting a plan together as we, move forward. You talked about valuation a minute ago and kind of getting to that.
Right.
And there's multiple things. I'm not sure we've got time to dive into the different.
That's probably
kind of,
a whole different.
Yeah, we've done a whole presentations just on valuation, and we've kind of hit, again, the high levels. Let's move into, so we've done a valuation. We kind of know what we've determined a price. Let's maybe move forward in some of the agreements to put in place, and let's kind of hit an overview of the agreements.
The papering the deal, as it were. So early on in the process, early on in the dating process, the kids would talk this, we're talking, right? We're talking. When we're talking, we need to get some agreements in place. Most important is non-disclosure and confidentiality agreement that nobody's going to say out of the gate, non-disclosure, and maybe non-solicitation that you won't use this as an opportunity to poach my employee. This is the time to start calling that business attorney, calling that CPA, making sure that we're getting those confidentiality, non-solicitation agreements in place. Once we've done some due diligence, we've looked at some financial statements, we've kind of got an idea that we want to move forward, then we'll do a letter of intent. That's kind of the engagement stage. We've kind of, I guess that is the relationship's going steady, we used to call it. So we're going to get a letter of intent that's a broad outline of what our business terms are, what our acquisition agreement is going to look like. We continue to do some additional due diligence. Right. We're looking up close and personal, maybe coming in and seeing what's happening in the offices. Then we come together and we present, or somebody presents to us, an acquisition agreement.
Yeah, it may be purchase agreement.
It may be for the purchase of your assets. It may be for the purchase of your stock or your membership interest. It'll provide how the purchase price is going to be paid, whether it's going to be a cash deal, finance deal, subject to financing. It's going to be seller financing. It's going to provide provisions about non-competes for owners that may be exiting the business, that they won't go across the street and take all the employees and start another shop. Another thing we need to talk about is if there are going to be outplacements as a result of the acquisition. It needs to be discussed, and the parties need to decide how we're going to go about that. How are we going to go about making those outplacements with the least amount of disruption to those people's lives as well as to the daily operations of the office? This is a place where you have to dig deep and find some compassion, and you have to understand that this is going to be stressful on everybody, and where we have outplacement requirements, it's going to upset people's lives, and it's a time for some compassion and some equity.
Yeah, and all these documents, again, these are all part of when we talk about putting a good team together. From someone that's got a small office, this may seem overwhelming, and again, it's why we need to have a team around us that can help us kind of wade through the waters of all these documents and putting it in place and doing our due diligence. And that kind of wraps it up. And Pat, leads us to our final poll question as we wrap up the content for today. What was the most valuable piece for you as we went through the day in the webinar? We'll let that poll pop up. Yep. And so as we wrap up and as you answer that, we'll kind of summarize, Pat, what we've discussed today.
So 4 points that I'd like you to take away, all of you to take away from this, and see the slide that will go up in a minute here about what those are. 4 points. No matter where you are in your agency, every agency owner needs an exit strategy.
Yeah. Whether you're the 5 to 10 window or the 10 plus even.
You need an exit. You need to go ahead and be thinking about what that is. You need to put that in writing as to how you want that to happen. You need the last will and testament for your business for whenever that time comes, whether it's tomorrow or 20 years from now. Start that process by assessing where your agency is today. Are you technologically current? Do you have succession plans in place? Do you have managers who are being mentored and trained? Do you know who's going to sit in your seat tomorrow if something happens, right? 3, determine your goals. Where do you want to be 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? So important, because you need to have those goals so you can develop a plan to get there. And then finally, most important thing, all of these processes, all of these steps, all of these concepts, the time to start on this is between 11:02 and 12 o'clock today. If you tend to wait and think about it, I'll do it later, somebody's going to come in your office, something's going to happen, there's going to be a crisis, somebody needs a policy, somebody's mad, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Take the next 57 minutes and sit down and start thinking about, what do I want to happen? Where are we today? Where do I want to be? And how can I start about getting there?
Yeah. So Sean, Anshi, thank you so much for letting us be a part of the webinar today and being able to pour into your group. Our contact info is on the screen now. Feel free to reach out to us at any point, whether you need help with a valuation or just need to bounce some things off of. We're available to you, and we look forward to connecting with you down the road.
And if you go back to that poll screen, I'd like to see that real quick, just as we do our final little fast few minutes here. Okay, so this is good. We've got everybody kind of informational system on M&As. Doesn't look like maybe too many of y'all are planning on being buyers right now, but the assessing your company and ready to transition tells me that maybe there's some people there that would like to talk to Sean, talk to us, or talk to someone else in that space about how we might be able to help you get from where you are now to where you want to be. Again, we look forward to hearing from you. Send us an email, give us a phone call, talk to Sean, and we are here to assist you in any way that you need.
Thank you, folks. So we're a little bit over, but just taking a look at the questions section here. There's some specific questions, most requests talking to you guys specifically, so having an offline conversation. So we'll definitely make sure that we get you guys connected there. But yes, I appreciate your time. There's a lot of information. It's obviously a process, but like you were saying, prepare, and start today. So I think that's important for even for those who aren't in the ability, they don't have the ability to say, yes, I'm making this decision. Just you as part of a group, a part of a team, understanding the process and understanding what to expect as well is always key interest to you too. So, all right, well, with that, I will end the webinar and thank you all for attending.
Thank you all. We appreciate you.